Leap and you'll learn to fly. Jump and you will grow wings. The key to success is action. The best way to predict the future is to create it. Okay, I can't actually go on with any more. How many of these tropes have you heard? They're usually associated with that scary first step of making a change in your life to go after something you've been dreaming about. And while, yes, sure, there is often a moment where, regardless of preparation or planning, making a huge change, or pushing that reset button, as Henrik called it back on episode number 519, well, it does mean finally just having to do the darn thing, even if you're feeling scared. At the same time, there are also very real considerations to be made before you take that leap. Yes, going full-time with your art might take a leap of faith, but is it the kind of leap that means you need to be running full throttle as fast as you can and hoping that you have enough inertia to get you over the chasm between where you are now and where you want to be? Or can it be more like the sort of push you get given from someone well-meaning? Like if you've ever gone skydiving, for example. Is it scary? Abso-freaking-lutely. And I have, in fact, skydove or skydived once before in my life, many years ago. Yes, it was scary. But at the same time, we also prepared ahead of time with some reasonable safety training, harnesses, and plenty of safety equipment, and a whole other fully trained professional human literally strapped to your back to make sure everything goes as it should. Still a scary leap? Of course. But I wasn't exactly simply hoping to grow wings once I jumped. While encouraging each other to go after our dreams and make them happen is absolutely important, and while I do believe it is possible to build a viable, small art business for ourselves, obviously, clearly, it's what I'm doing, these entrepreneurial tropes, leap and you'll learn to fly, might actually be doing us more damage than good. Because when I hear that phrase, leap and you'll learn to fly, I personally visualize a very specific series of actions. A scary jump leading to amazing results that propel you with wind underneath your wings onward and upwards. No sidestepping, no pausing, no uncertainty after that first jump. Just beautiful, breathtaking views and air beneath the metaphorical wings propelling you toward your dreams. And if you haven't sensed it yet, spoiler, it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes that leap is really more of a tiny hop. After years of nights and weekends and living frugally in order to put away a hearty savings from a full-time job. Sometimes that leap comes with outside financial support, maybe of another family member or a loved one, allowing you to leap, but with a safety net underneath of you while you're figuring it out. But perhaps the worst one of all, at least for my own mental health, is the way the leap is perceived on the internet. The leap on the internet is perceived as either you're good enough to make it work and you're now a success, or you're not. The visualization of the leap leaves no room for the murky gray area that is, in fact, far more realistic for far more of us. What about taking a leap, realizing it maybe wasn't the right time, and pressing pause? It doesn't mean you failed, per se. It just means maybe you weren't ready to jump out of a plane by yourself yet. After all, there is a reason you have to jump 25 times before you go skydiving by yourself. Doesn't mean you can't one day, it just means not on day one. All of this to say, sometimes we leap with the best of intentions and excitement and even planning, and life just doesn't go the way we had envisioned. And frankly, that process isn't something that talks about very often, which is exactly why I was so impressed when Xioma Ortiz of Hello Xioma and creator of the Domies shared so very candidly on Instagram as she made the painful decision to close her solo studio. And we're going to dig right into her story right after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online source for research and inspiration, featuring photos of objects made by over 1,000 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great source for students and teachers. To find out more, visit www.rosenfieldcollection.com. This episode is also sponsored by the Archie Bray Clay Business, home of Bray Patch, a ceramic patching material that is best used for filling cracks and bonding breaks. Bray Patch can be applied to either green or bisqueware and fired up to cone 10. It fires paper white, but can be tinted using your chosen clay body and be covered by opaque glaze or slip. Order anytime online at archiebrayclay.com. Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Maker's Playbook, the show where we talk all about what it's really like to make a living from the things you make. I'm your host, seasoned entrepreneur of 14 years, Rebecca Ikes Cara. Hey, Xioma, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Feels like such a long time coming. Oh my goodness. Also, we just need to finally get together in real life because we are not far away from each other.
We are not. And I told you that I was in Lake Geneva. I didn't know that I was halfway from you. But I'm going to go back. Next time I go back, I will promise to remember.
Perfect. Well, as we're recording this, I'm coming to Chicago literally tomorrow night for a show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you. Like, that's just, it happens. Well, before we get into all the things, how would you introduce yourself in the context of art, in the context of clay, maybe?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if I even fit in this world. I don't even think I fit in this world. Honestly, I want my pottery to be of this world, but I don't want to be a part of it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Ooh, that feels like a lot to ask questions on. There's a lot of depth there. Well, walk us a little bit back. So I don't even remember how I found your work online. I'm going to guess it was through Diana.
Probably.
I'm just going to make that assumption.
No, probably through Diana.
Right.
Because she did this one thing when she was introducing all these like new up-and-coming artists, and I was so grateful to be part of that. So it's definitely Diana.
So how did you, because then I came across through that, I think I came across through all your interior design. So I feel like you have a lot of mediums going on also, which informs what you were making in clay, I assume.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I'm still trying to figure that world. I'm still trying to blend these two worlds together. And right now I feel like I'm in a great space to do that, if that makes sense. Because I know we're going to talk about all the issues that I've had with the pottery. Now I could talk about it, so it's great. That's one of the things that I'm trying to figure out at this moment is how to blend these two worlds together. And I know it could be done because you have Jonathan Adler. You know what I mean? That's like a classic example. He does pottery and he does interior design and he does other things. It's nothing new that I'm trying to start or create, but it's new to me because I haven't done it.
Yeah. There are examples to look to and kind of figure out how to find your way, but you still have to find your own way, right?
Yeah, I'm finding it and I'm stumbling and I'm just trying to pick myself up each time I stumble, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Well, and I think what spurred us talking officially, quote unquote, on the podcast was that you have been sharing so openly online about this journey. And I think what was really interesting to me is I think so many of us come on something like a podcast after something has happened, after everything has worked out, and being able to say like, oh yeah, there were hard parts, but it was all worth it. And instead you were very vulnerably sharing online, like, this shit sucks. For lack of a better phrase. Those are my words, not yours. You were more eloquent about it.
No, it does. So I know, like, I don't have a lot of followers, which is great, but my hardcore followers know exactly what I've been going through, and they have been on this journey with me. I come from a career of software development, did it for 20 years. That's all I know. And one day I was like, I just can't take it anymore. I was burnt out. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to try doing this pottery thing. And I did. I quit my job.
Pretty quickly, right? Let's go back to like, when did you first get into clay?
So it wasn't quickly. I had my son 7 years ago, and I got into pottery about 5 years ago. So I have been doing pottery now basically for 5 years. It was always something to just release whatever stress I was dealing with work, being a new mom, this whole life that changed. And then trying to figure out, man, because even before my son was born, I was burnt out, and I knew that I was, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And honestly, I was scared to do a lot of things, And it's one of those things where it's like, when are you going to just do it? And you always feel like when you do it, man, I should have done it before I had a kid, or I should have done it before I got married or something like that. But it wasn't the life that I was living. And honestly, as a software developer, I was living comfortably. It was a steady paycheck. I was making more than enough money to sustain myself. So I was comfortable.
I remember we were comparing notes on house renovations because I was like, yeah, as a software developer, you got to re-side your house, and that is a big deal.
Yes.
Siding is not cheap.
Siding is not cheap. And that's another thing I was doing. I bought this crappy house, and it was literally crappy, and I'm trying to do the best I can to renovate it because, yeah, I have a software development salary, but renovating is expensive,
Girl, I need something else in this coffee to have that conversation.
I know. And then when your house is so old, because my house is like, I'm surprised that it didn't get knocked down,
Some days it feels like that would have been easier, right?
It does. And those are one of the hindsight things that we probably could have just knocked it down and started over. But I've only lived this life once. I'm figuring this out. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm figuring it out. I know I keep failing and I keep falling, but just gotta get up and keep moving.
And this is going to sound super cliche, but I know for myself personally, in moments like that, it has always felt like a failure. But then after a certain amount of time goes by, and I don't know if you're feeling like this yet, it's like, oh, that was just a piece of the puzzle. That was just learning the next step in order to get me to the next place, right? I have built the Maker's Playbook in a dramatically different way than how I started with photography or how I started with the second brand of photography, which initially failed dramatically. And then I changed it, and now it works.
I'm not sure if I'm there yet. I know that now I'm accepting the position that I'm in, which is I'm still trying to figure out how to get my studio back. I legit had to go back into the workforce, but this time I'm not in software development. I actually do work as an interior designer. So that's great. So it's not as bad. So that's why I feel like I'm in this stage where now I'm trying to figure out how to blend these two worlds together. I already I'm going to open up a studio. I have my own studio space. And I think a lot of my followers saw me when I first opened up my studio. They saw me like change it up as best as I could. They saw me work through it. And by the way, that was the first time that I've ever had a kiln and I ever used a kiln.
I mean, there was a lot going on. I was like, she's all in. She's like jumped off the cliff. And yes. I think this is what Christina was talking about in terms of so Christina Batiste with Juniper Clay, she and I got to talking about watching your journey together because we were talking about how there's so many adages and sayings and stuff people throw around of like, leap and you will learn how to fly. And it's like,
no, not really. I don't know how to fly. I don't have a damn parachute. Um, but it's a good thing that I kind of like bumped on a bunch of clouds before I landed on water or something. Well, no, water would hurt too. I don't know.
You slowed down. Somehow
Somehow
it
they
wasn't,
slowed down
yeah,
and I landed where I'm not completely broken.
on a puffy
A big old puffy pillow.
something. Yeah. One of those, I'm picturing those giant blow up things they put outside of a building when someone has to jump out of a window, like a building on fire.
That's exactly what I landed on.
Don't know what it's called, but that thing.
That thing. That huge inflatable. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so walk us back a little bit. I realized I jumped over the parts that I know about already in terms of you got into clay when your son was born, and you were at a community studio, right? Beforehand?
Yep, I was at a community studio, which I really liked. And then COVID happened, and I had to figure out how to do the same thing at home, which I did. So for the entire summer of COVID, well, not summer, the entire year of COVID, I was working in my basement. Not basement, my garage, which was terrible because there's no insulation. So it's super hot in the summer and freezing cold in these Chicago cold ass winters.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not putting my fingers in throwing water in January in a garage.
It's not going to happen. Even at the peak where the sun is up, it's still not going to happen. You heat the water up, but you only got like 2 minutes before it's frozen. You know what I mean?
It's either boiling, like I literally have poured boiling water in a bowl and then it's too hot to touch. So then when you can touch it, it's actually got ice crystals in it.
I know. And ironically, when you work with clay, it does form ice crystals. And I try to fire it just to see what would happen. It just crumbles. So it's not even worth it. So I would take these long hiatus. And again, dealing with I'm stressed out at work. I mean, even my personal life is like failing. It's not just my business life and this life that I'm trying to create for myself. Everything is just kind of crumbling in. And man, I don't know. I honestly don't know how I was able to survive that whole year running a studio. It's like a double-edged sword a little bit because while it did give me a sense of freedom and calm, I also was not generating enough income. I just wasn't. What made me realize is that I had a accountant that I went to, and she kind of did a forensic study of everything that I put into the business and everything I was making. And I was just at a negative profit of like $3,500. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have kids and you don't have a job that's giving you money, that's a lot of money.
It warms my heart, but I was like, hold on, I'm going to make it. This is a really important point to make, and I'm going to make you say it again. Anybody from Chicago or probably New York listening is like, yeah, that sounds normal, but we'll give the rest of the world a moment. So you were saying you had an accountant you were working with who looked and saw that you were in the red, effectively.
I was in the red. And I was like, I can't do this. I know. And people are like, oh, but it's your first year. But in my head, I was like, I can't do this. And then at that time, I was signing up for all these art festivals. All of them were like, oh, I'm sorry, or you're on a wait list. So I didn't even have like a way or any out or any silver lining to be like, something's going to come in. I did do that orchid dinner in New York, but that didn't really generate anything. And that was a huge expense that I took. Like whatever I used to spend for that was a huge gamble, and it didn't work out, you know?
Which is fascinating to hear because I feel like events like that are the things people see online and go, oh my God, look at what she's doing. Like, wow, how successful is that? I wish I could do that. When really, what's actually happening behind the scenes isn't what it looks like on Instagram, right?
Exactly. And that's one of the things about my Instagram. I'm always going to be honest and I'm always going to be truthful about stuff. Like, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat anything. Literally, my stories is where you're going to get the play-by-play, real-time version of what's happening in my life. Because I used that as a way to vent my frustrations almost. And it was very encouraging. My supporters really did encourage me. But at the end of the day, I really needed to do what's best for me. And I really needed to figure out a better and solid plan.
So just to give everybody a little bit of a timeline, when did you go from so you went from community studio to the garage?
Right.
And then when was it like, okay, I'm going to go get a studio of my own?
So I was in the community studio right up until COVID, right? So it was 5 years up until COVID. Even a little bit after COVID, they had opened up the studio where you could come in and it was, very staggered. You have to wear masks. And so I did do a couple of Domies there. The issue I was having is that in a community studio, people touch your stuff, especially when you're not there. And so I was getting a lot of breakage. And then you have to depend on their firing schedule. You just have no say. And honestly, I do feel like my Domies is something unique. I do feel that I can develop it as a character, and I'm trying to figure that out. So after that, that's when I went into my garage. Like I was like, I'm going to be so frustrated that I'm not going to want to do these Domies if things are going to get constantly broken, or, I just have to wait on stuff. And then even in a community studio, you can only make but a certain amount of items.
Like one shelf.
Yeah, one shelf. And then you're only limited to like 2 bags that they give you. And you can only buy like an extra bag for the entire semester. So you can't really make a lot, even if you wanted to. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's interesting. That's different than the community studio I was in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This one's very strict. It was very strict, very rigid. You couldn't use your own glaze because it was a high fire studio. And you couldn't even if I buy high fire glaze, it was just too restrictive.
So then when you went from there to the garage, that was when you were having to learn, you had to buy your own kiln, you had to learn how to fire a kiln, everything.
So, yeah. So at that time, I still didn't have a kiln. I was just making stuff. Like I was already prepared to okay, I'm going to just get a kiln, but let me just make this stuff to see if I could make the stuff here. And I did. I bought a kiln, which stood in my garage for so many months because I was scared of it. Like once I had the kiln, I was scared of it. I was like, holy shit. I don't know what's going to happen. And then other pottery people that I were following were like, oh, my house just burned down. And, I had this GoFundMe page, and in my head, I'm like, oh, fuck no. Okay, you're going to stay in that box until I figure something out. Because, I was I'm not going to burn my house down now, especially if I don't know what I'm doing. So I was just, I don't know. It was crazy that I even was trying to figure out how to do this. As a studio became available, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a try.
I mean, it was such a huge leap for me to see you go from, because also the Domies, so for people who haven't seen them, you are making a mixture of a mug and a sculpture together.
Oh, yeah, I'll show you.
Right? Is the best, well, naturally. But it's a sculpture that's so much, oh my God, they're so cute.
It's functional.
So cute. Right. But they're on tennis shoes or currently what I'm looking at, I've never seen the rollerblade ones.
Yes, they're on rollerblade.
Which is hilarious. And so I was seeing, the time that goes into the sculptural elements, obviously, then radically escalates how much, or I should say de-escalates. You can't pump out, you're not doing production pottery with those.
And I'm not a production potter either.
Right. So I was trying to kind of figure out, okay, so now you've got the overhead of the studio, but, the quantity of Domies you would have to be pumping out, I was like, what piece am I missing here of what's going on?
The same piece I was missing. Listen, I can laugh about this now because I have processed these feelings, but trust me, when I tell you that I was going through it, I explained to everybody that I was losing my studio and stuff, and then I haven't been on Instagram because these are the feelings that I'm processing that I'm able to laugh at now.
What made me so, I don't know if excited is the right word, but, relieved that you wanted to share this story is because I do think it's something really probably common in terms of so many potters who are in community studios who see these people having home studios or separate spaces going, oh my God, if I could just I want to do that, and not realizing what that actually means and what that looks like, and then kind of getting in there and getting maybe over your head and thinking what have I done wrong, when really it was also, from my perspective at least, a lot of social pressure to be like, yeah, go for it, do it, you can figure it out. And it's you can, but there's also just financial reality that is no error of yours, is no lack of the person doing the thing. It's just you didn't have a venture capitalist behind you to be like, yeah, sure, buy all the things.
Yeah, no, it's true. A little bit of it was social media because you see all these people yeah, just jump. Okay. And then even when I felt like I planned, because I did plan, I did save up. I'd be like, okay, what do I need? How much money do I need for a year to survive? And I did do that. So it's not like I jumped without a cushion. I mean, even though I jumped, I guess with a parachute, the parachute failed. And I'm just trying to like get back on the plane so that I can fly off again. You know, that's where I am. So I do plan on my goals, at least until the end of the year, is to try to get a small shed in my yard. At least with the shed, it'll be small, tight space, which is fine. But at least if I have my kiln there and it does like happen to like go haywire, at least it'll be in the yard. You know what I mean? It's not going to be in my house. It's not going to be next to the garage. It'll just be a big open flame in that yard. You know what I mean?
Don't go starting the Great Fire of Chicago 2.0.
Oh my God, imagine.
We've already got a grid system. We're good.
It'll be the goat and the egg.
All of a sudden, if a cow wanders into your yard, like, do not fire the kiln.
I'm not going to fire the kiln. I won't. If I see a raccoon, I'm not going to do it. If I see a rabbit, I'm not going to do it. No animals allowed.
People are like, what the hell are these women talking about? You guys can just Google the stories of Chicago. What was it a few years? Was it during COVID? There was like an alligator in Hyde Park.
No, it wasn't in Hyde Park. It was in
or not Hyde Park, Humble Park.
Humble Park.
Humble Park.
Yes.
Because they called it
living in the lake. Yeah.
Chance the Trapper.
Yes.
I digress.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
I'm not even gonna so I'm born and raised in New York, and no lie, in the projects there was a guy living with a tiger and I think an alligator as well. So these wild animals follow me. I'm just saying.
You don't have a lot of square footage in New York to have a tiger.
Yeah, in the projects. I'll send you the link. It was like an amazing story. And what happened was the tiger mauled the owner.
Shocked, really. I'm really stunned.
He had to go to the hospital and they were trying to figure out, hey, what really happened to you? And yeah, they turned out
he had to tell them that there was a tiger.
Who he said was his brother. I'm just saying.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So we're gonna circle back to that one.
So I guess if I move to a different city, they can expect to have some sort of wild animal story happen.
Exotic animals will follow.
I know. I'm not saying that I'm the cause of it, but I'm just saying, don't be surprised.
What is it? Causation, correlation, tomato. Love that. I love that.
Oh God, this podcast is crazy right now.
It's fine. It's fine. We're all going into like, back to school and holiday prep. And so I feel like a little bit of unhinged storytelling is appropriate for this time of year. So I'll try to get us back on track. When did you sign the lease on your studio?
So I signed a lease in February 2023.
Okay, 2023.
Yeah. By the way, let me just go back a little bit. When I first moved to Chicago, I was trying to find my way. I moved here with no friends. I moved here because my husband lived here and I just had to figure out my life. And so I found a little neighborhood called Beverly, which I love. And at the time when I moved to Chicago, I was actually doing cake decorating. I know.
Hey, do I have photos of your cakes? Like, did we do something together and I don't know about it?
No, but it's funny. If you were in my stories, I think I posted pictures of my cakes in my stories. But yeah, so I was looking for like a bakery shop so that I knew I wasn't gonna find people, but I was like, let me just keep making cakes because I make pretty good cakes. And so I found this little cake shop and I started going there all the time. I actually taught cake classes and cake decorating classes there. And so at the time, she did not own any of those buildings. She was actually renting. And then over the years, me and Lori, oh, by the way, it's Cakewalk Chicago, if anybody wants to know. So me and Lori became friends. And next thing I know, she owns all the strip stores in that area. Initially, I wanted to rent a small little space in her cake shop. Mm-hmm. But then when I went, I was like, oh, this may not work out because I was thinking about just health and, the state and all that stuff. And so she said, well, I do have a studio around the corner. And she showed it to me. I walked in. Mind you, it was wintertime. And all of this light was just, there was no lights on. It was bright and it was airy. And I was like, I just fell in love. And I think that is what made me sign a lease in February. I quit my job in March. but then really didn't move into my studio until the summertime.
Yeah, nobody's moving in March. Absolutely not.
Yeah, but still, I could have, but it just took me a long time. And I didn't realize that from the moment I quit my job until where I started actually being serious about the studio, that was time that I took to decompress from 20 years of software development. And I didn't even know that I needed that decompression to happen.
This is something really interesting to me because I feel like I've just now been realizing with phasing out of weddings, even though we're both making positive changes, we're both making healthy changes for ourselves, it's still change, right? And your brain kind of like short circuits to be like, oh, I knew how to do this other thing, even if it was functioning in incredibly high levels of stress, even if it wasn't healthy, I knew what to do. And now I'm over here doing something new, which is healthy and better. But at the same time, I have to relearn everything. I have to like function in a different way. And that I literally just a couple weeks ago was like, oh, maybe I should be nicer to myself.
Yeah. Those are the things that you don't even realize that you're doing to yourself. And we're going to go back to that cliche, just do it, jump, take a leap of faith. No, if you're going to jump, you need to make sure that you are decompressed from whatever you have done before you figure out, before you even get on that plane. Decompress. Like, I think that nobody talks about that. And even though I quit my job, I woke up, did nothing, went to sleep. That was a repeat. I needed to do that. I was so paralyzed and trying to figure out what to do. And now I didn't have something beating on me. It's like, oh, is this what it feels like not to have someone beat on you? Okay, let me figure this out here for a little bit. And it took me quite a few months. And honestly, I had done a collaboration with Diana in June. And that's kind of what kind of fueled me. Okay, I have the studio. Let me get my shit together.
Yep.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from those months, I was just like kind of like in a fog, lost. I don't even know if I was motivated. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I made these big decisions and I'm not even ready to tackle anything that involves this decision right now.
Which is burnout. I mean, is at least my understanding of it. I feel like it shows up in a lot of ways for people, but I feel like you and I maybe both had expectations that like when we make this change, we're going to have this surge of energy and all this excitement because we did the change, we did the thing, and now we get to do what we want to do. So we quote unquote should have energy. And it's like, your body's like, guess what? You need sleep.
You need to sit your ass down. You know what I mean? For lack of a better term, but yeah, that's.
But also literally, you need to.
No, you need to. And this whole take a leap of faith, I don't know what you want to call them. This club, this group, this idea. There's a lot of things that you have to do. And like I said, I felt like I did a lot of it. Like I knew I was going to do it. I was saving money. I was like, this is what it's going to take me each month to make sure my bills are paid. This is what I have saved. I even like fudged my numbers so that, hey, if I want to take my kids to get some ice cream or a little, I did that. And I made sure that I saved for a year. So even with all of the safety measures that I tried to like bring with me, it's still a lot to run a business. And especially when I'm not extroverted like that. I don't like talking about myself. I don't like marketing. And it's funny because I found out Seth Rogen was doing pottery, and I would look at Seth Rogen doing these videos. Hey, I made this and blah, blah, blah. And in my head, I'm like, well, God damn it. He's promoting his own pottery. Why can't I do that? And I still struggle with that.
I mean, you also are not a professional actor, so.
I'm not yeah. No, but still, he's still a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's used to give yourself a little bit of a break. He's used to being on camera. Like putting himself on camera is not nearly the hurdle that it has been for a lot of us regular people to be like, okay, I'm going to talk to the camera. All right, I can do this. He had a slight unfair advantage on that one.
You're absolutely right. Because I will say that not on this phone that I'm using, but my old phone, I will have like 10 videos of just one damn sentence that I'm trying to get out. So yeah, I guess you do have a point there.
And everybody looks at me like the extrovert of like, yeah, easy for you to say, Rebecca, you're on camera all the time. If you notice in my stories, I am always in this office. I am never, very seldom, am I somewhere else. I'm never even in front of Francesco. No story ever. Maybe sometimes I'm outside in the yard, maybe. but he's not out there. Like, it's so uncomfortable for me to think about like standing there with my phone like this
I know.
with someone else in the room. It's like, oh God. So even on the extroverted end of things, I have still found my little slice of like, this is the part of it that I'm comfortable with. And this is the amount that I will do. I'm not lip syncing. I'm sure as hell not like doing what Diana's doing. Like, that's a whole nother level.
Oh no, she's amazing at it. She is like the queen of social media.
When she said she was introverted, I was like, excuse me?
And she really is. No, she is. And that's such a quality that I'm just like, how do you do that? And even though I spent a few days with her, I still don't know how she does it. You know what I mean? She's amazing.
That for me goes to show like there is a way for each of us to find what works for us. I'm never going to do what Diana does. I don't have the energy and I'm just amazed. We just all have to find, I don't know, because if I try to do what she does, it's not going to come off well anyways. Like,
yeah,
I don't have the dance moves for one.
Yeah, it's like, not part of your personality.
Right. It just wouldn't come, it just wouldn't
feel natural.
I feel like if you watch that, it would be like, what's she trying to do?
You'd probably get a whole bunch of texts from your friends like, girl, what's happening over here?
Like, people can't see us right now, but it would just be the head tilt, like the sideways, like,
What? Did she? Okay.
Or worse, I wouldn't get any messages, actually.
Oh, I would send you a message. I would be like, Rebecca. That's all you,
do not.
Rebecca. In all caps, Rebecca.
Separate syllables.
Nothing else. That's all I would say.
Oh my God, I love it. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
And that's what goes to my point that I said earlier. Like, I want the Domies to be of the art world, but I don't want to be a part of it. I just don't want to be, I don't want to mingle with anyone. And it's not because I'm trying to be standoffish, but it's just, that's a lot of me to like, when you're a software developer, I was behind a computer for 20 years. I didn't have to bother anybody. It was just me and a bunch of numbers and letters. And I would just put them all together. It didn't make sense to anyone else. But I'm just like, I need to put these numbers and letters together so that everybody else can enjoy the internet. You know what I mean? And I was like by myself. Yeah, I was by myself for 20 years. And I think a lot of that has to do with my childhood too, because my mom never really let me go outside. So I learned to be alone. And now I'm like in my 40s and I'm trying to break out of this. I'm trying to break out of this. You know what I mean? And that was starting a business is one of those things that kind of helped you. And I thought that it would force me to be a little bit more open and stuff, but I'm still working through it.
I think it's a beautiful example too of all the things that have to happen for a business to work, right? I heard on another podcast recently, they were saying, no matter what kind of business you have, like literally every single business on the planet in some way has 3 departments. They have a marketing department, they have a sales department, and they have a fulfillment department. In terms of like, marketing is you have to tell people the thing exists.
Right.
Sales is you have to close it. You have to get people to pay for the thing. And then fulfillment is obviously you have to give them the thing. And I think when we dream about being full-time makers, it's mostly just in the fulfillment piece. It's not in all the other ones. And it's like, there's so many different ways to do the marketing and the sales to figure it out to work for you. You can prepare for that in a sense. There's people who wait until they have a certain size audience or email list or demand or whatever for sales before they make that leap. But it still changes everything when that is your only, like the way selling that changes when it's like, this is going to buy my kids groceries. It's completely different.
Oh, for sure. And I think when I started, I only had like 300 followers. I literally was like, I know nothing. I have nobody. You know what I mean?
Had you done markets before?
So I did like smaller ones, but they weren't the right fit. That's another thing. Like, you can't do every market. That's why when I learned about these art festivals, I was like, okay, maybe these art festivals, maybe I could fit into them a little bit better. But then when I kept getting the, oh, no, or you're on a wait list, I'm just like, okay, well, maybe I don't fit into these either.
We've been having the same issue in terms of all of last year, especially. This year feels like we're starting to find better fits. but that balance between we make really utilitarian, very minimalist stuff.
It's gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the neutralness.
It's like
Classic.
but like at the same time, with Francesco's skill set, we don't fit in your like crafty markets and your like side hobby, whatever. So we had the same struggle initially. I mean, we're getting a little bit better at it now, but for sure, like the work is kind of above your typical craft show, right? And no shame on craft shows. It's just different. A lot of craft shows have people who are doing it as a hobby. And so the pricing is different because the subject that will always come up whenever I speak, nobody's paying for their healthcare with their hobby. So that's something different, right? But at the same time, when it comes to fine art with a capital A, functional ceramics kind of struggles to fit in there because it is functional. And so where do we fall within that? It's such an interesting, like ceramic specific issue because it can be functional and we are making utilitarian stuff. And when I think about your stuff, I don't even think about the art world, capital A, in that sense. Not because it doesn't have that, but more because I think of people like Dwight White, who I interviewed way back in it was like the 14th episode of the podcast, who does murals in the city and then whose aesthetic switched over to designing. He designed some tennis shoes. He designed like jackets, like this much more like lifestyle aesthetic, I guess. I don't know what the word is. Maybe you know what
I don't, because I'm trying to figure it out. And that's the thing. Like I said earlier, I'm not inventing anything new. I just don't know. I don't know the path to take. I don't have a map. I don't have a compass. I'm not from any world but technology, you know? So it's difficult. And honestly, I've always had this thing with art where I always felt it should be functional. So like I go visit all these places and museums, and I totally understand because people are just people and people can be idiots. But there should be, I think that's why I like the whole, what do you call that? That famous painter. What's his name?
like Warhol? Andy
Not
Warhol?
Warhol.
No.
The other one where they do like the interactive, immersive type of art. Oh my God, he's like a famous painter. We should know who he is. He did the Starry Night. You know what I mean?
Oh, Van Gogh?
Van Gogh.
Oh, that kind of interactive. Oh, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, the 3D video mapping stuff they did with his work.
Yeah, I thought that was like amazing. I was like, they're onto something here. And even since then, I've been finding other things just like that. So like I took my kids to like this ice cream museum where you go and you explore the world of ice cream. And it is artful and there is a space for it. I'm trying to figure that space out, and I'm trying to figure out how I can put myself in that space. I want my Domies to be of that world, but I don't want to be a part of it, type of thing.
Interesting. How does it feel now then being into, because your other passion was interior design, so how does it feel being in that world? How is that different, I guess?
So in terms of it being different, I'm dealing with people now. So I'm building up these people skills. And not only am I building up these people skills, these people are trusting me to make a space that they can't figure out. And so I'm like developing all these skills that I didn't know that I needed. And some of them I'm really good at that I didn't know that I was good at. I'm at a place where, okay, now I'm learning all these skills now. How can I use these skills to make the next time better? And how can I build this business of interior design with this Domie business together?
That's where my brain went personally, was like, I don't know that I when I envision you in the future, I don't know that I see purely clay. I think of, like you're going to use clay when you need it to bring about whatever vision, but you're also getting these other skill sets of like, but maybe I can also do this with wallpaper or with leather or with paint or with, like I feel like, to me at least, it's just like you got a skill set of another medium to add to the tool belt so that when you need to bring together a vision of a space, you can just pull whatever tool.
And I think that's where I'm going. That's where I feel like there's this new path that I'm trying to follow. I don't know where it's going to take me, where I do want to talk about interiors and how art can be a part of it. and how you can live with art. I know there's a lot of people that do it and they mostly do it through paintings and photos, but there are other ways that you can live with art and it be just as fun and functional. And so I'm trying to explore that. And I think that that's a great way to combine both because not only can I talk about my Domies, but I can also talk about other people's cool things that you can live with in your home.
I feel like you just made yourself like a spokesperson for clay. You're helping bring all of us who are over here trying to figure it out. You're helping bring this medium to that like interior design echelon, right? To be like, yeah, okay, we can think about painting, but have you thought about what the lampshade is going to be, or not the lampshade, the
lamp,
the lamp itself, you know, we could commission this clay artist to do this thing. Or like, you know, what about what's going to be on the coffee table? Like all of these other places that.
Or maybe the coffee table itself.
There we go. See, I do not think big enough. I mean, honestly, selfishly, this is the point that I should mention. One of Francesco's dreams is like not right now because we have the electric kiln in the basement that is not going to burn the house down. But is like when we would have in the future, should we have resources to larger kilns, is to do like interior pieces, is to do bigger statement pieces. So like by the time we get that, you'll have your interior design studio and we'll just be off into the races, right? Like there we go.
There we go. I love it. I'm taking all of it in.
I don't know. I know that maybe I'm like rose-colored glasses. I'm the person on the outside looking in that didn't have to experience this like emotional year. But talking now, I just think like this is going to come out in some other way in the future, like bigger than what it would have ever been if you would have like slogged it through and been like, okay, make more Domies, sell harder and push through, which I think is the storyline we hear so much from people who like take that leap. And then it's like, well, I didn't sleep for a year and I just worked really hard and now it's all okay.
Yeah, no, it's not the case. And another thing I just want to quickly mention is like, I also didn't want to fall into the trap. Well, okay, Domies, they do take a long time for me to make, but I have to make other things now because these other things are going to be faster and they'll sell quicker. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that either because that was also an option. And I did start making mugs that way, but then I was like, I don't want to make these mugs. And so I think that I also wanted to say that if you are going to do something, it's not working out, it's fine. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I don't know if I'm going to be fine. I think I will be because I think not giving up is more important than feeling what I'm feeling now. And feeling what I'm feeling now is going to get me to where I need to go.
Yes. I think that's what I was trying to get at is like, I don't think when we like take a leap and it doesn't work, I think the default narrative is to say, oh, it failed or I messed up. When in reality, I don't think it's not like you didn't quit. You just were like, oh, okay, this was too early. I need to go learn some other skills. I'm going to go learn some other things in a different place in a way that keeps my family safe and we'll come back.
But I did feel that. I did feel like I failed and I messed up, but I didn't stay in that feeling for long. And I think it's natural to feel that way. If you do feel that way, it's okay. That's the process that you're in, but you can't stay in that. You cannot even stay in it for a month. You can't stay in it for a week. It's like, okay, that's your underlying feeling. I wrote it down somewhere. I don't know where it is. That's okay. That's part of the process and keep moving. You know, like how they say, trust the process, even if you don't have a process. Oh man, I feel like I'm in a shit show right now, but I do. I just
well. So what does
my phone is like? Yes, you're in a shit show. That's confirmation.
That was the most perfect comedic timing. I actually want to leave all of the audio of that in because that was like, you could not have done that on purpose if you wanted to. I swear. But it was perfection. That was like cinematic perfection.
It's life telling me, yes, that's exactly what I needed to hear myself say right now. I'm in a shit show. It's okay. I'm going to get out of the shit show and I'm not going to smell like it. I'm not going to smell like shit when I'm done, okay?
We're still showering, so it's fine.
Still showering with soap and a wash rag, okay?
We're exfoliating. We have the whole thing. So just to kind of like give everybody insight of where we're at now. So the studio we had from like February of 23 to February of this year, 2024.
Right. I closed it.
And then
I will. Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I didn't do. I didn't film myself taking my stuff out. And I purposely did that because there were days where so it took me quite a while because I just have I have an SUV. And so I would fill my truck up and I'll be like, tears come down my eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I just didn't film that part and I couldn't because it was just too sad for me. So anybody who was following those stories, I just wanted to say that's why I didn't do that on Instagram because it was just too heartbreaking for me. Yeah.
I mean, you were so open and vulnerable. And that was what was so impressive to me was like you were processing in real time for everyone to see what this reality was.
Yeah. And I'm still dealing with it, but it's a part of it.
Well, and this is what I was thinking about in terms of in the very beginning when we were talking about social media and whatever. It was like, I think your experience now is more normal than what we get shown, right? I think there are probably so many more people who we know it's true because we hear all the statistics, right? Of all of the, small businesses after the first year, after the first 3 years, after the first 5 years, making anything past that is like an exception to the rule. And we hear those, but we don't actually
see it.
Ever think about what that, yeah, exactly. Like you just see all of a sudden a store that's closed on the block you usually, walk the dog down and go, oh, darn it. Or the other funny part is like I see online a lot, people talking about closing up shop and getting all these messages being like, oh, but I loved your this so much or that so much. And they're like, well, you didn't love it enough to buy it. Like,
yeah, you have to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to say, I'm going to shout out to all of my hardcore people. I love you because my repeat customers are just like the best. And it's interesting because some of them do share when they buy it and some of them don't. And I actually do like that. Like, I know that it's a big push to like tell people, hey, share your stuff on social media. But sometimes I'm like, no, I don't want you to, And I started putting that in the end and I was like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like that I have to add this hashtag. Like, it felt icky to me. I understand the purpose of it, but I do I like when the people who share their things because they just do it normally. That's their thing. And then the ones that don't. And I love it too. Because I do feel like these Domies came from a special place. It came from a very special day of me and my girlfriends just doing a 5K run, wearing these types of Converse sneakers. And
that makes my feet hurt. Running 3 miles in Converse? Ow!
Exactly. But you would think that we had so much fun. The laughter and fun we had outweighed all that pain. And that's what the Domie represents. It represents, yeah, things are going to get hard. Things are hard. But when you have like the right people around you, when you're with your friends who are it's all worth it. The happiness is a lot more than the pain I felt. And that's what goes into these Domies, I think that's what kind of resonates with people too. I think they feel the happiness. And that's what brings me a lot of joy when people are like, oh, they make me so happy. And I felt so I heard a lot of that when I did that orchid dinner. People would go to the table and then they knew that it was me that did it. They would come up to me like, oh, this makes me so happy. And I felt good. I'm like, good. I'm glad that I was a good part of your day. Or I'm glad that looking at these Domies made you happy,
I didn't even know that part, which just feels so, I didn't know the origin story of them, and it feels so full circle to what we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah, I think so. Saying it out loud, I think so.
All of a sudden I was like, like, yeah, I'm making a circle with my hands and putting a bow on top.
Yeah, starting a business is painful. It's painful. It hurts. It's not always going to fit right. It's not going to feel right. You just got to keep doing it and figuring it out. I'm going to figure it out.
You are. I think you are going to figure it out. I think it's messy while we figure it out.
I think my success is going to be super messy. If these are signs of the universe telling me it's going to work out, but it's going to be a shit show, like maybe I won't.
I think that's more true than the stories. And this is frankly the whole reason I started the podcast in the first place 3 years ago, was like, I think more often than not, it is messy. I think there are very few stories that get a lot of attention of people who had a certain amount of resources going into something, who could like 110% obsess over getting this business off the ground without kids, without a partner, without, like, yeah, if I was, well, when I was single in my 20s and starting a business for the first time, it was my whole life. I couldn't have done that with kids.
It's a lot to balance.
Right. And at the time when I was doing that and working other jobs to do it, one of which being a nanny, watching parents trying to start their own thing, you only can do that with a nanny.
Yeah. I would bring my daughter with me to my studio. And that was another thing. I thought, okay, my son's in school. At least I don't have to worry about one kid, because he'll be in school. And she's little enough that she could stay with me. Even when you plan all this stuff, sometimes it just doesn't work out. I'm just one of those cases. I planned for it. It just didn't work out. Well, it didn't work out as expected. Now I'm just trying to pivot and figure it out. I'm going to try to be positive about this.
In that period of time, it didn't work out as planned. So what does life look like now in terms of the interior design work and kind of where you're at right now?
So I work for a huge e-commerce company that started online, and they opened up their first brick and mortar right here in Wilmette. It's not Chicago, but they opened it up in Wilmette, and they
only true Chicagoans will understand. Yeah. Wilmette's a suburb, so a lot of people would just say in Chicagoland. Yeah. My heart is warmed by the fact that there is a difference.
No, there's a difference. It's the suburbs. It's Wilmette, and it's like 30 minutes outside of Chicago, I think.
On a good day.
On a good day, yeah. So yeah, they offer free interior design services. I'm one of the designers. Yeah, you just come in, bring me all your info, and basically I'm just like creating a space for you. That is what I'm doing. That's what's sustaining me now. That's what's making me save money so that I can like get the shed in my yard. And also, oddly enough, even though I am back in the workforce, this is a completely different salary for me. So I went from making a whole lot of money to no money to now very little money. I think the financial part of my life is also learning lessons that I didn't know that I needed to know as well, in terms of, man, you had the software development job. You did a really good job saving, but having the salary now and being able to sustain the salary, you could have done a lot better. You know what I mean? Which is making me like, okay, I am going to be doing a lot better. Just because I'm going to do a lot better doesn't mean I have to live that way again.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's these lessons that I'm learning that I didn't even know that I needed, which is why I think the next version of this will be a lot more robust and a lot better and a lot more sustainable. And mind you, I'm not a wasteful person. I'm also not frugal, but I was just smart with what I did and what I had. But now I'm just learning, you can live off way less than what you think you did before. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like anything that we get comfortable with, or even what we are surrounded by, right? Like at the top of me getting in, kind of at the peak of events for me in 2019, I was surrounded by people who, quote unquote, were so busy all of the time that they spent so much money on so many conveniences, like on delivery groceries or like all the mass variety of services you can have other people do for you, that maybe if we pause for just a second and are like, if we weren't trying to pack in our day so full and be so constantly go, 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 maybe it would be healthy.
Yeah.
If I had the time to mow my own lawn.
Right.
What is that going to do for me as a human, instead of just like earn more money in order to spend more money to pay more people to do more things for you because you don't have enough time because you have to earn more money.
Right. That's a terrible cycle. And that's one of the cycles that I don't want to bring into my own personal world ever again. I don't want to do that. And I don't want to do that with this business. I really don't. I would rather have 10 people buy my things all the time than 1 million people know who I am. And just a fraction of that. You know what I mean? I know what I said didn't make sense number-wise, but I'd rather have quality over quantity.
It's a conversation Francesco and I have had a lot, because in that high point for me of 2019, my operating expenses, like what I was putting into the business money-wise, was dumb. Like I didn't even realize the gap between how little I was paying myself and what I was putting back into the business constantly because I thought I needed to have this certain perception of success.
Right.
It's like embarrassing for me to think about our gross revenue and how little I paid myself. Like this was stupid. I should have had money in an investment account or like something else for that security.
Yeah, but the hindsight makes you better now, right? Now know to pay yourself. Like I didn't even pay myself.
Well, and also now the conversations we're having is what is enough? Like what is, because I think that a lot of the conversations with business is always grow, push, push, push. Go and get your own studio. You don't need to work out of the garage. Do this. Expand, instead of like, well, what is that growth going to do to your life? What's that going to look like? Do you need it? Because,
Do you want it?
Do you want it? Do you need it? Can you do something differently? Like we're doing all this work with restaurants. We're not using molds or jigger and jolly. So we have a capacity that we can do because it's literally by hand, but that's an intentional choice for us because that's what we want to do. And then that kind of informs what life looks like instead of growth upon growth upon growth for the sake of having a bigger business.
And that's one of the things that I struggle with too, because it's like, even if I have to get to a point where I need help, I don't want to go to these countries that are using child labor.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather pay a person a living wage to be able to have them stay with me for as long as I can to pump out more Domies. I'm not there yet, but that's one of the things. I don't want these Domies to ever be made in a machine. It'll just lose its value to me, and then I just don't want it. If somebody else is making it and helping me make it, I would rather that. You know what I mean? And I think for me, it also made me realize that how big can I get without having all this overhead? And can I do it with just the bare minimum, the bare resources that I have? And is that even possible?
Totally.
So, another thing that's in the puzzle, that piece is there. I know it's part of the puzzle. So I know it's gonna figure itself out. You just gotta figure it out.
Well, I'm thinking about all the people I know who had experience in retail that had so dramatically informed them doing what they do now with their own business. And so I know it wasn't part of the plan. I know this wasn't necessarily where you wanted to be, but I'm excited because I just feel like there's going to be something that comes out of this that radically changes where you're like, I think something's going to open up in a completely different way than
I expected
or even envisioned, or I don't know.
And I hope that I'm open enough to actually receive it. Just because you get opportunities doesn't mean that you see them. Not every opportunity is your opportunity. I'm learning that with interior design. I can't design every room. If you like this style, I don't. You know what I mean? I don't like that chair. It's not me. There's no way that I can make this room look nice for you, knowing that you like that chair. You know what I mean? And so not every opportunity is going to be for me. And I have to learn that too. Well, I'm learning that. So yeah, so when you say that, I accept it and I receive it. But I also hope that when that does happen, that I receive it and my heart knows it was meant to be. And I think that's more important than something is going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I want to be grateful too when I get there. I definitely want to be grateful. Right now, I don't know if I have gratitude in me, but I want to make sure that that's part of it too.
That's fair. I feel like that's the other thing. Like the internet is all like good vibes only. And it's like, that's not it. The gratitude will come, but it's okay. I don't know. I can be pissed off for a while when something doesn't work out. Like that's fair.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just don't stay in it for a long time.
Here's the interesting thing. We started talking about having this conversation months ago when you did turn in the keys. And it's interesting to me now that this feels like the right time to, had we kind of put, oh, shoot, hold on, let me make this happen. We're going to reschedule this thing so we can have this interview instead of just letting our schedules figure themselves out now a few months later. It's a completely different conversation. And in so many ways, probably more fruitful.
I think so. Cause yeah, we were trying to I rescheduled like twice. And then
I also did.
Yeah. And then I was like, you know what, let me just figure this whole thing out. And it is a better conversation because I think a few months ago, I wouldn't have had any answers for you. I just would have been like, yeah, it just didn't work. I don't know why it didn't work. It wouldn't have been a great conversation because you would have been like, what the hell is she talking about? And then you would have been in your editing room. What is she saying? You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with her? Why is she so closed? You know, she's not saying anything.
Nah, but I feel like it's just one of those things of like the timing here worked out for a reason. Just like, again, it's all the things coming out of my mouth are a cliche, but like I have to believe even for myself, like the timing, it does what it does. It works.
It does. Yeah.
Because I've tried to shove it down my own little plan for so long, and it's like I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now had I not had the 14 years before. And, you know, that's a value, but also it came to a point where it was time to change. Like, that's also okay.
Yeah. And I think the unicorns are really just the people who do it the first time. Great. Good for you. You're a damn unicorn. You know what I mean? But eventually you're going to crash. That's how I feel. Even if you are successful, because I personally do think that when you are that wildly successful without issues, the smallest, slightest issue will make you burn and crash fast. I do appreciate all of these bumps and hurdles that I'm going over because I do know that, yes, I fell down. It stung. It hurts. It's still hurting me, but I put the Band-Aid on and I'm getting back up. And I think that's more valuable than having wild success without failures.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like what we need to change is everybody talks about the adage of leap and you'll figure it out in order to fly or whatever. But there's actually another one that's way more realistic that is get up one more time. Like as long as the number of times you get up is one more than the number of times you fall. And in some ways, that's literally the golden ticket, the silver bullet, the whatever to everyone's figure. Like, hey, how can I do this? How does it work? How can I be successful? How can I whatever? And it's like, that's the answer. That's it.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is we've all been here once. We're all living this life for the first time in real time. We have to find our way. We are going to make mistakes. It's just going to happen. Some of us make more than others. And I am giving myself grace. It's okay if I make a mistake. I'm not perfect. I'm just trying to be better and do better and go down this road of life as best as I can.
100%. And also, I think the people that we see that we think aren't making mistakes just have more buffer to hide it. They're still making mistakes. There was just more resources to like cover it up.
I feel it. And then even when your resources run out and you can't cover it up, it's like, damn, this is what I was really trying to do, or this is who I was trying to aim to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When really you should just always aim to be yourself, which I've been told over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you just have to believe it, you know?
Which is hard. Spoiler.
Even when you're in your 40s, you're still like, people act like you're in your 40s and you're supposed to know everything. No, you don't. We're still trying to figure it out too.
I'm pretty sure that on whatever weird planet we hypothetically, quote unquote, knew more in our 20s. And in your 40s, it's like, oh yeah, no, I don't.
I don't know. I absolutely know nothing at all.
Oh my gosh. But you're figuring it out. And I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And also your kids have given you 90 free minutes, of which I feel like I should hang up. Don't tell them that you've hung up and just like give yourself another 5 just maybe 10. That's pushing it.
Actually, I'm not, because I'm going to take them out to this really cool restaurant that I heard about where it's like a robot that brings you your food. I don't know if the food is good.
Doesn't matter. That's not the whole point.
Experience. Yeah. So I can't give myself because I'm sure that they're hungry, and little hungry kids are not fun to be around.
All right. We're hanging up now. Godspeed to you. Is there a place in the meantime while you're figuring it out? Is there a place online you want to send people to just connect and keep on this journey with you?
Well, you can still follow me on Instagram. I'm not there all the time. I'm not in my stories. So I do apologize for not being on my stories. I will be though, because I'm going to start talking about the whole process of getting a shed and what that looks like. so that it's not a small version of my garage. So I'll probably start talking about that because I've narrowed it down to a company that I'm going to use. So you can still follow me on Instagram at Hello Xioma, HELLOXIOMA. And then if you want to follow me on interior design stuff, that is Xioma Designs on Instagram. So yeah.
And be warned, full of beautiful ideas that send me down rabbit holes of new house projects. And I have to finish the ones I already started.
I am going to say my interior design, I'm definitely not active on that at all. I just post my work. That's about it. There's no talking. I am not a DIY girl. So if you think I'm going to be doing DIYs, no, I'm not going to do that. But that's not the thing. The stuff that I did for pottery, I want to try to do that for interior design because I never did. I never gave that a good solid chance the way I did for interior, for pottery. So, all
right,
I'm going to work it out.
I'm going to be following along on both to see what happens because I'm excited to see how it all blends together.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
Heck yeah, I'm so excited.
I feel like I'm part of the cool kids now. Yeah.
I think it's hilarious as a band nerd that I somehow am the keeper of the cool kids. Like, that's hilarious to me. The moral of this story is don't peak too soon. High school's not the end.
No.
Your 40s is where it's at.
That's right.
I love it. I love it.
Even if your 40s is a shit show.
It's going to be amazing. I hope what you've heard through this conversation is that this story is not done for Xioma. She took a chance. It didn't work out right now, but that doesn't mean that something isn't ever going to work out in the future. In fact, what I loved to hear the most was how aware she is now of all the things she can learn from being back in the corporate retail environment, and how she'll be able to take these new skills that she's getting on someone else's dime, frankly, and use them for whatever the future brings for the Domies. And I'd be willing to bet, without the experiences of the last year, without the pain of having to close a studio, the perspective of what could be gleaned while working in retail might have been clouded behind the annoyances of having to work for someone else. Now, I obviously cannot speak for Xioma directly, but I'm just guessing here. Thanks to the last year, this phase is just that. A phase, a pivot, a step along a long line of steps we often don't hear about online when people talk about going from point A to point B. The internet makes it look like it's two simple steps, A to B, when in reality, it's actually more like trying to get from point A to point O with a stop at every single letter in between. There are often so many unseen steps and support networks that we don't know about when we're comparing ourselves to fellow makers online. So I hope in hearing Xioma's story, you're reminded to give yourself a little bit more grace for whatever point along this journey you are on right now. And if you're looking for more support, no matter where you're at, just starting out or a seasoned full-timer, well, you know where to find my favorite place online, makersplaybook.com/community. Right now, I am preparing our final theme of the year, which is going to be email lists. Together, we are going to be getting over the hurdle of initially setting up your email list. There's going to be co-working opportunities so that you can work through the technology aspects to make sure you don't get stuck, and learning some simple best practices we can put into place so that no matter if you are a side hustler or a full-timer, you can start to have control over all the effort and work that you are putting out there on the internet, rather than being beholden to the social media algorithm robots that we all love to hate so much. If you've heard people talk, or let's be honest, me talk about the importance of an email list, but you've always felt overwhelmed by the notion of setting one up, then now just might be the right time for you to come join us inside of the community. Learn more about all of the ongoing perks and the benefits of membership as a whole, and come join nearly 100 other makers from all around the world by visiting makersplaybook.com/community. Once again, this episode was made possible in part thanks to our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online source for research and inspiration, featuring photos of objects made by over 1,000 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great source for students and teachers. To find out more, visit www.rosenfieldcollection.com. This episode is also sponsored by the Archie Bray Clay business, home of Bray Patch, a ceramic patching material that is best used for filling cracks and bonding breaks. Bray Patch can be applied to either green or bisqueware and fired up to cone 10. It fires paper white but can be tinted using your chosen clay body and be covered by opaque glaze or slip. Order anytime online at archiebrayclay.com. Audio post-production of this podcast is made possible by help from Christy Kotzfan, with promotional material assistance from Queenie Maliki. The Maker's Playbook podcast is recorded on the original homelands of the Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee people, where the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present. Until next time, my friends, go get back to making your dreams a reality. Because together, we've got this.
This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network, an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.